Hello, let's look into the Frostblades Raider build. Frostblades is a melee attack that releases frost blades on hit. It's very similar to Lightning Strike, but deals converted cold damage, and has a massive melee strike range. This skill can be used with any melee weapon, but it's the most popular with claws or daggers. This build is able to clear all the content on a very reasonable budget. The following setup revolves around using White Wind unique dagger, Heat Shiver helmet, and Southbound gloves, allowing you to deal tons of cold and fire damage, freezing everything in your path. To freeze enemies more efficiently, you can also add Expedition's End unique armor. Not only it allows you to freeze enemies with the extra added fire damage from Heat Shiver, but it will treat these hits when calculating freeze chance and duration as if they were dealing up to 100% more damage. For the Ascendancy, we have selected Raider. It is an extremely fast character with its Avatar of the Slaughter combined with multiple frenzy charges, an Avatar of the Veil which applies a particularly powerful elemental exposure that reduces resistances. Frostblades is a melee strike attack that can be used as early as level 1. It is a ranged projectile-based skill with incredible AoE thanks to additional projectiles being released from your initial hit and covering the entire screen. It is an amazing skill for leveling. It allows for an extremely fast map clearing. For defenses, it uses armor gained from evasion rating and converted from iron reflexes, phasing, 100% spell suppression chance, and has up to 90% chance to avoid all elemental ailments. It also freezes all opponents, which is another powerful defensive layer. For a melee strike skill, clear speed is as good as you can get. Single target damage is good, as the build is more damage oriented. It can freeze map bosses. Build runs on a shoestring budget. There are many cheap rares and uniques that can be implemented. There are a lot of unique items for such a generic build. Its only defining characteristic is dealing converted cold attack damage. It should have a high critical strike chance and attack speed, but the freezing aspect and the enhanced non-damaging ailments are the parts worth exploring too. Abyssus grants a terrific damage boost. This will also make you vulnerable to physical damage hits, so you should try to avoid any attacks at all costs. Heat Shiver. With Avatar of the Veil and tons of cold damage, you will freeze almost any boss in the game, which results in a lot of added fire damage. Combined with the cat's buff, Feral's Fur is one of the best armors for most of the attack builds in the game, but it's quite expensive too. Expedition's End is a rarely seen armor, but it is extremely good with Heat Shiver and Southbound. All damage can freeze, including added fire damage from Heat Shiver, and it's easier to freeze bosses. Touch of Anguish. A budget-friendly and very solid weapon for this build. It offers high DPS and increases your clear speed via extra chain but will limit your single target DPS against endgame bosses because of the relatively low base damage. White Wind is an unusual choice. It's very good but requires an empty offhand to do any meaningful damage and to add a lot of spell suppression chance. Having no shield is obviously hindering. Massive bonuses for each frenzy charge active make Darkrai Vectors one of the best budget picks for this build. Legacy of Fury boots have decent armor, evasion, movement speed, and most importantly, these apply a powerful scorch that reduces all elemental resistances by up to around 15% and explodes enemies on death. It's even better with Yoke of Suffering or after investing in non-damaging ailments. Southbound is a pair of gloves only good if you can freeze enemies with each or every second hit. You can apply Ignite with a bit of added fire damage to kill enemies at 1 life which you cannot freeze. Critical strikes have inherently a 100% chance to ignite and freeze. A corrupted pair of Tombfist with extra frenzy charge can also be a very reasonable choice. Though if you get Intimidate from other sources, Awakened MPD Gem, Eldritch Implicit, or Lethal Pride Jewel, it kind of loses its purpose. Yoke of Suffering is an excellent choice if you're using Heat Shiver. Not only it grants a lot of resistances, but also increases the enemy's damage taken per ailment. That's Ignite, Chill, Freeze, Shock, Sap, Brittle, Scorch, Bleed, and Poison. Circle of Fear is a ring that can improve your Herald of Ice. It can get you more cold resistance, cold damage, increased buff effect, or increased mana reservation efficiency. Lethal Pride adds a lot of strength and various upgrades for melee-type characters, so you might find something good. Socket it near Frenetic of Fervor notables. There are tons of perfectly suited nodes near Fervor notable, and if you don't have enough points to pick them all up, you can still allocate the best notables with Intuitive Leap. Watcher's Eye is one of the best endgame jewels. You should get one with a flat added critical strike chance while you are affected by hatred or other hatred modifiers. If you want to get all the influenced gear with expensive affixes, there is basically no upper limit on how much it can cost. In general, all of the equipment can be replaced with rare gear, as this build offers amazing flexibility in that matter. For defenses, get evasion, spell suppression, maximum life, and resistances of all kinds. For damage, attack speed, a good weapon, and critical strike modifiers. A rare helmet with high defensive stats which reduces the cold resistance of nearby enemies is a solid and well-rounded choice. It's also possible to get a helmet with an extra crit multiplier for some additional DPS too. An Elder chest piece with high life, evasion rating, and added crit chance to your attacks is extremely powerful and can be tailored to your specific needs. Use a claw for life on hit, and because of multiple claw nodes near Raider's starting location. Daggers can be good too, for more critical strike multiplier. Aim for maximum physical or cold DPS within your budget, the more the better. Use a rare shield mainly for defensive stats, but a Shaper shield can also reduce the amount of mana reserved by socketed spells, allowing you to use additional aura. We recommend picking a high life, resistances rare belt. You can use almost any base, but preferably leather belt, rustic sash, or Stygian vice. On your boots, aim for the highest simple defensive stats and a high movement speed bonus. Rare gloves are a very solid choice which will help you cap your resistances. Also, gripped and spiked gloves will both provide a decent DPS increase. End game items should add extra frenzy charge via affix or corrupted implicit modifier. On an amulet, you can seek attributes, resistances, maximum life, critical strike modifiers, extra mana reservation efficiency for specific auras, and even accuracy rating. Rings also offer a wide variety of extra additions. Make sure to cap your resistances, get some extra life, and any of the following DPS-oriented bonuses. On the Murderous Abyss jewels, seek flat added physical damage with your weapon, accuracy, critical strike mods, and maximum life. Have the maximum life bonus on each jewel equipped, as well as any combination of the recommended stats found below. Large Cluster Jewel. 1 attack damage. Large cluster jewels can be a good addition. Martial prowess is excellent. Feed the Fury and Fuel the Fight help with life and mana leech. For cold damage clusters, take Blast Freeze, Disorienting Display, and Sadist. It's recommended to get 1 medium cluster jewel with some critical damage notables, or effective non-damaging ailments, which is even better if you can shock via Yoke of Suffering. There are 4 unique flasks worth recommending. Taste of Hate grants both amazing DPS and defensive bonuses, making it one of the best utility flasks for this build. Atziri's Promise is a great, inexpensive, and one of the most popular flasks that grants additional chaos resistance, damage and life leech. Bottled Faith increases damage and critical strike chance. It's expensive but worth its price. Starlight Chalice is good only if you have high evasion so that ward won't be instantly broken, and if you can inflict non-damaging ailments other than Chill and Freeze, Shock and Scorch would be an excellent addition. For magic flasks, Bubbling Divine Life Flask with Freeze or Bleed immunity, and a Diamond Flask with increased critical strike chance are the best 2 flasks, and if you have space for a third one, get a Jade Flask with increased evasion rating. Now Skill Gems. Frostblades is your main DPS attack. It releases additional projectiles from your main hit, covering nearly the entire screen and obliterating enemies. It converts 60% of physical damage to cold, the rest can be converted via cold mastery or rare gloves. Link it with elemental damage with attacks, multi-strike, ice bite, added cold damage, and hypothermia support gems. You can replace hypothermia with Nightblade support for more critical strikes and elusive buff. Hatred is the best aura for this build. It grants a lot of extra cold damage and opens up new powerful options on Watcher's Eye Jewel. Grace simply adds and increases evasion rating. Herald of Ice adds extra cold damage to your attacks and causes AoE explosions upon killing frozen enemies. Link these three with Enlightened support to increase mana reservation efficiency. For other auras use Defiance Banner. It increases armor and evasion while reducing critical strike chance for nearby foes. Precision adds accuracy rating and increases critical strike chance. Assassin's Mark massively increases critical strike chance and damage. Link it with Mark on hit support. Rare and unique enemies will be marked automatically with the linked mark. Ancestral Warchief summons a totem that grants you more melee damage. Ancestral Protector summons a totem that grants you more attack speed. Link these with multiple totem support to have both ancestral totems at the same time. Culling Strike support will make your totem instantly kill enemies below 10% life. Ice Golem is the best golem for this build. It increases your accuracy rating and critical strike chance. Immortal Call will grant a damage reduction buff for a short duration. Keep this gem at levels 1 to 3. You can swap it for Molten Shell and use it as your movement key, but it requires a decent armor. Link these skills with Cast when damage taken to cast them automatically. Dash is the recommended movement skill you can use in this build. You could replace it with Whirling Blades for more mobility, but an inability to cross ledges. Killing all the bandits for 2 additional skill points, or helping Alira for mana regeneration, critical damage multiplier, and elemental resistances are viable options. Soul of Lunaris is a good option for faster mapping and for better protection against projectiles and in crowded areas. But to keep yourself safe from damage over time, especially Chaos type, pick Aracali. Damage over time is the greatest weakness of the build. You can mitigate it by picking Soul of Ralakesh, Shikari, or Abarath, depending on the type of enemies you're fighting or your own Chaos resistance. On the passive skill tree, we've picked all the extra maximum frenzy charges with the Disciple of the Slaughter at the very bottom. Elemental damage, critical strike, and cold damage nodes will increase damage, and in our case, dagger nodes too. If you're using a claw, pick claw nodes instead. Get charisma for an increased reservation, some maximum life, spell suppression, and evasion for defense. Accuracy and life or mana leech might be necessary too. For keystones, get the point blank and iron reflexes. For masteries, get the maximum life ones as life masteries, grace reservation efficiency as evasion mastery, enhanced elusive effect as dagger mastery, extra accuracy or precision's reservation efficiency as accuracy mastery, damage conversion as cold mastery, increased effect of non-damaging ailments as elemental mastery, additional targeting as attack mastery, and extra critical strike chance as spell suppression mastery. That is all you need to know about Frostblade's Raider. If you liked the video, we'd be pleased to see you like it or subscribe to the channel. See you soon.